Good afternoon, beautiful people of planet Earth. It's 5:14 p.m. on the 1st of November 2025. Oops. Just wanted to show you, I finally finished off these tin earrings that I made a few weeks ago, and I've painted them and varnished them with triple glaze varnish, and I like them now. I didn't like them when I first started fiddling about with them, but yeah, a bit of colour gave them a bit of pop, and I think they should look quite exciting. So I'm very happy with those. After all that, it took me a while to finish them off and come to terms with it all, but yes, I think they've come up great. So Mama T's very pleased with her efforts. And I thought I'd continue reading from Elliot Perlman's 7 Types of Ambiguity, because the other videos have uploaded, so there's not a queue, and it's all happening in a far out way. I thought about going out in the cool now to work on my opals some more, but it's wet and there's still a fair bit of thunder and lightning, so I thought the best option will be to continue reading this interesting and thought-provoking novel to you. Chapter 4 of Part 4. So tell me what happened. What happened after you married Patricia? We moved back to Melbourne and she gave birth to our son James. Needing a good job urgently, I started to apply outside physics for anything that paid well. Non-disclosure of my PhD proved a winning move, and I quickly got a job as a money market trainee. Things looked as though they might be starting to improve. Isn't it a shame when you have such high qualifications that you've got to actually dumb down to get a job? Make out that you're just uneducated or less educated than you actually are. It's heart-wrenching, isn't it? What exactly is a money market trainee? I was trained to be a dealer in the short-term money market. Is this some kind of banking? Were you being trained to be a banker? Yes, in a way. I was a middleman buying and selling cash, bonds, commercial bills, that sort of thing. What's wrong? You look confused. I'm not much of an investor, Dennis. It's quite simple, really. At the end of every trading day, some corporations have excess funds, money they don't need for immediate trading purposes. Other corporations may have an acute debt. They may need funds urgently to cover some contingency, some debt that's fallen due. We operated in the middle, borrowing from the corporations in surplus at a certain rate and lending to the ones in deficit at a higher rate. Just going to look at that again. I like to study things that I've made and quell. Probably shouldn't hang them together until the varnish is completely dry. Yeah, that's better. Sorry, I know I drifted. I'm sorry. We operated in the middle, borrowing from the corporations in surplus at a certain rate and lending to the others in deficit at a higher rate. The margin, the difference between the borrowing rate we paid and the lending rate we got paid, was our livelihood. The lenders don't know where their money is going, and the borrowers don't know where their money has come from. The loan might be for 24 hours, and the rate could change during the course of the day. You didn't trade only with corporations. You could often make your best money from other dealing houses. How does that work? Your last chance to negotiate a deal was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That is, when the deals had to be in. It's 10 to 3 and you've borrowed too much. You've got surplus cash that you haven't been able to lend. Another dealer from another house calls you in a panic. He's desperate. He has a client who needs funds urgently. He's been calling around, but he can't find anyone who has any available. You tell him you borrowed at 18%, and so you'll be charging him 19 or 20% when you really borrowed at 15%. Now, not only do you no longer have to lose money when you pay back the lender from whom you borrowed at 15%, but you're going to come out 4 or 5% on top. You'd go for more if it was really close to 3 and he sounded desperate. The trick in this situation is to make the other dealer really believe you borrowed at 18%. Couldn't he check? He doesn't have time to call around to too many other dealers. You have to persuade him, get him to believe you. So you're lying? Yes, you're lying every day. The better you do it, the more successful you are. That's the way it works. Of course, not everyone lied every time. Many dealers were straight, and if you were a straight dealer yourself, these were the first people you would call when you got into trouble. Of course, the straight dealers didn't stay. They didn't last. Why not? The market didn't tolerate them. Did it tolerate you? No, I was too straight. There were no disasters. I did okay, but I just didn't have it in me to hustle. I couldn't say things I knew weren't true, not in a confident way. The best of these guys, they live on their nerves. They drink too much. 90% of their marriages fail. My marriage failed too, but that was not because of what I did for a living. It was because of who I chose to marry. Is that when you started gambling? No, I started gambling before I was married. Why did you think that? Well, you talked about living on your nerves. I would have thought serious gambling requires living on your nerves. No, it's a totally different thing in many ways. If you're a dealer in the short-term money market, you're still an employee. What distinguishes the employee from the sole trader, which is what a gambler is the capacity to be terminated not merely by the market, but at the whim of another human being. It's a special kind of humiliation, over and above losing money. Anyway, I was a different kind of gambler. I told you about that teacher who sparked my interest in gambling? Yes. Later, when I was at university, I read about these guys, physicists from California, who tried to use physics in Las Vegas casinos to predict where the ball was going to land on a roulette wheel. Really? Yeah. 2 of them played as a team. Only one actually played. The other was there to gather the data they needed. Both had tiny computers fitted into their shoes. The computers were programmed to calculate the final position of the ball given its initial position, its initial velocity, and the initial velocity of the wheel. The guy observing fed these initial values into his computer by punching buttons with his toes. He fed in the initial velocity of the wheel, for instance, by pushing a button on each of 2 successive pass-bys of the zero. His computer calculated the final position of the ball and radioed it to the computer in the shoe of the guy playing. His computer then tapped his toe a number of times to tell him what position to bet on, all while the wheel was still spinning. Remarkable! What attracted me so much to this was that they weren't gambling. That's the part that hooked me, being smarter than the others and drastically reducing the odds until the bet was almost a certainty. Oh, you're in your cage. Good boy. Just going to close their cages. You're a good boy. You're ready for bed. It's nearly birdie num num Betty by time, isn't it? You're good boys. And happy birdies today. Happy birdies every day. That's how Mama T likes it. Her boys to be happy and her daughters to be happy too. Even though we're strange, I want them happy and safe and loved. There we go, my little handsome one. You sleep over there now. That's interesting. Okay, whatever rings your bell, little boy. Right. Where were we when I rudely interrupted us? Ah, yes. Is that your game? Roulette? No. I played a little of most things when I first started. Not roulette or slot machines or lotteries. They're mathematically rigged against the player. Aren't they all? No. There is one game in which it's possible for a player to gain an advantage over the house. Blackjack. I used to like to play blackjack. Not in the casinos though, because I think I played it on 2 occasions at the casino because someone asked me to play with them and even gave me money to bet with, which was very odd. Don't know what that was about actually. But anyway, I played and actually did okay. Eventually I didn't lose the money. He lost the money, the gentleman that asked me to play with him, because I don't know what that was about actually. It was a very odd evening. He invited me. I was dancing in front of the Livewire bar where I danced for 12 years. And he bought drinks for all the guys in the band. I think it was Alter Egos playing that night. Anyway, and then he asked me, he said, if I give you some money, will you gamble with me? I said, why would I do that? I'm not a gambler, I'm here to dance. Just indulge me, he said. I said, I'm not an escort and I'm not a whore, I'm not any of those things, I'm here to dance. He said, oh, even better, I know I can trust you then. It was odd. Anyway, we went to play blackjack and he gave me some money and I was a bit green because I hadn't played it for many years. And I announced, I'm new, I haven't played this so many years. And the croupier was so amused. And I was actually doing okay. I wasn't completely losing, but then I started to lose a few hands. And then my new acquaintance got a bit tetchy and he wandered off and came back. And then he deliberately made me lose all the money. It was odd. And I was annoyed because it wasn't my money, it was his money. So I handed him back the money that I had left, which was $90. And he said I could keep it, which was kind of him. $90 is a lot of money to a woman on a pension. So I didn't really know whether to believe him or not, if he had an agenda. So I went to cash the chips in, got the cash, the $90, and because I'm scrupulously honest, people, I went to find him to give him back the cash. He said, "No, love, you can have that money." It's very kind. Never forgot that, because it was just so weird and out of left field. Anyway, no harm, no foul. Is this the same as 21? Very good, Alex. Is this a game that is the manifestation of your gambling problem? I don't think I have a gambling problem. Didn't you say one of the first things you said to me was that gambling had got you into trouble? Do you remember saying something like that? Alex, you really don't know who I am, do you? I only know what you've told me. Aren't you in touch with her anymore? Oh yes, I forgot. I apologise. You can't answer that. It's too personal. She's part of your private life, and you're not going to give anything away about your private life. Do you think she's implicated in your unhappiness? You said I was depressed. Now you say unhappy. I said I thought you might be depressed, but you won't argue with a description of yourself as unhappy? No, I can't. Dennis, what happened after you stopped working as a dealer in the money market? My eyes are really blurred. My goodness. It's probably the heat. I don't do well on very hot days. I struggle. I struggle in the cold and I struggle in the heat. Struggle, struggle, struggle. I live in Struggle Street. But anyway, I shouldn't make jokes of it. It's not actually funny at this late stage of things, but I might just turn that light just a little bit away from my eyeballs, because my eyes are very sensitive, people of Earth. Right, we carry on. Well, there's more storms rolling through. Well, as I said, I wasn't actually doing that badly at the time, but I could see the writing on the wall. I knew I wasn't really a salesman, and I thought I'd better do something preemptive before everybody else realised it. What did you do? I made an appointment to see the only director I thought had a sense of me. I told him I didn't think I was cut out to be a top dealer, and that I could serve the firm better if I were transferred to another department, one I knew was having problems. What did he say? He seemed a little taken aback. Firstly, no one had ever gone to him and volunteered their comparative shortcomings as a dealer or as anything else. Secondly, I was absolutely spot on about the problems about the problems they were having in their unit trust department. In fact, the board had discussed the very matter the day before and apparently had passed the sort of resolution that gets passed when a board is looking to hide the fact that it has no immediate solution to a particular problem. He said he could probably swing a transfer with the board, but he warned me, somewhat ruefully, that a culture of excel or get out and prevailed in the firm, and that my admission of incompetence as a dealer, and even my very candour, would you believe, would be held against me at the annual performance review. I hate those kinds of environments. It's why I can't work, people. I can't abide dishonesty, treachery, being lied to, being deceived. It's the end of most relationships, friendships, or business contacts. Once I get a sniff of that, it's awful beyond belief. But I don't live in your world. You live in mine. That's why I live in Struggle Street. If I was a corrupt arsehole, I'd be a multi-millionaire by now, because it's not for lack of brains, people of Earth. My couth is killing me, literally. But never mind. On with the story we go. His response rattled me. He hadn't told me anything. I didn't know, and it shouldn't have, but it did. They had this rank and yank policy of regularly terminating 15% of their employees after each annual performance review. Desperate to convince him of my value to the firm, I told him I had a PhD. I had never told anyone there that. I didn't want them thinking I was... You didn't want them thinking you were what? I don't know. Too educated for my job? Although I knew how little the market valued education and science, they could still have thought I had wasted my human capital. Dennis, why do you think you're crying now? I don't really know. What are you feeling when you recall these things to me? I don't know. Frustration? Anger? Tell me what happened next. Well, when I told him about my doctorate, his ears seemed to prick up. I think he liked me. So we can assume you're pretty comfortable with numbers, a lot more than most, he asked. I told him that was a fair assumption, and he told me to give him a couple of days and he would get back to me. Get back to you with what? He got back to me with what he seemed to regard as a Solomonic compromise. Implicit in it was the acknowledgement that I was effectively finished there. He had called in a favour owing to him and got me a job as an analyst at a broking house. A broking house? Is that like a stockbroking firm? Yes. And an analyst? An analyst researches the market and provides the recommendations upon which the dealers base their hype. Is he like an actuary? Not at all. But do you need some facility with numbers? It helps a little, but you sure as hell don't need to be a mathematician of any kind. What you really need is a facility for impersonating someone with the facility to sell ill-founded corporate speculation, hunches, to trigger happy dealers, gorillas disguised as men. I don't think you like dealers. The dealers make the really big money off the backs of the analysts. Well, that's reason enough. Joe Garrity was a dealer I worked with. Joe Garrity? Why did you mention him? That name in particular. He was the dealer I worked with to promote managed care. If you think I'm evil, Dennis, I don't think you're evil. Just because I'm opposed to managed care doesn't mean he's certainly a lot stupider than me. You misunderstood me before to have said something about not being here but for gambling. I wouldn't be here but for Joe Garrity. He's an ordinary man, and I don't mean that in a way that would appeal to someone like you. What do you mean, someone like me? Someone with your socialist leanings? Dennis. And I say this not because it's important to me, but because it might be important to you. I'm not a socialist. Remember, I've seen firsthand what socialism really means, one form of it. Anyway, but what does this have to do with Joe Garrity? He's not a man of simple tastes. He's not ordinary in that sense. He's ordinary in the sense that he'd be easier for someone like you to understand than I am. There you go again with that someone like you business. Are you saying that a psychiatrist would find You hard to understand? I suppose. I'm reminded of the Latin, homo sum humani nihil a me alienum. Is it nihil or nihil? Nihilism, we say in English. Humani nihil a me alienum. Well, I didn't study Latin at school. The top stream girls studied Latin. I was in one of the top streams, but I was not in the top of the top stream. La crème de la crème, the daughters of doctors and lawyers and scientists, you understand. I was the dumb one in the highest stream of the school, which is a fresh kind of hell. You're better off if you're the smartest one in the dumb class, quite frankly. Not that, people who aren't terribly bright can't make great successes of themselves in the world and have actually fared better than I, by and large. Not having too much attachment to your emotions can be a boon, just things going right over your head because you lack the intellect. Dear Goddess. When I think about it, sometimes I want to kill myself, but here I am, people, soldiering on as I've done every day for 60.5 years. I'm going to give myself a little pat on the shoulder and blow kisses to my psychiatrist, who's determined to keep me alive for the last 15 years, and blow kisses to my true friends who also stood by me historically, even though they seem to be wavering now. And, life goes on, people of Earth. Life goes on. I'm impressed as hell yet again. What does it mean? I am human. I consider nothing human strange to me. It's a very good quote. I'll have to learn that. Homo sum humani nihil a me alienum. Bit like nil bastardos et carborundum, but that's kind of a twist on the actual Latin, which is nolite et carborundum something. It's not bastardos. Anyway, you've got to have a sense of humour if you're going to speak pig Latin, don't you, darlings? To the two doctors that taught me that little phrase, which basically means never let the bastards grind you down. They knew me too well. They'd seen me in full flight and in full trauma activation. They knew. They were kind from time to time. Pity about the rest of the congregation having knives in my back and mocking me even for my stilettos, although that meeting they were not part of my actual congregation, but that was disgusting too. Anyway, on we go, people of Earth, and courageously wild and free with my hair blowing in the loud electric storms. Right, where was I? Give me a chance, Alex. I'm just warming up. You think you have a handle on me, some understanding of me. Middle-aged, depressed, you say, screwed up, unable to attract women without paying for it. Dennis, they are all your words. Being angry with me will provide you with only temporary relief. You're too quick to have me jumping to diagnostic conclusions. I wish it were that easy. I'm the first one in my family to go to university, as well as being the first one to go to a psychiatrist. I don't know what you mean. Are you linking the two? Are you equating the two? Is that it? No one had ever littered a conversation with either of my parents with a little advertisement for themselves in Latin. Oh, Dennis, I'm sure they had, often, at least once a week, probably on Sundays. What happened, Dennis? You took the job as an analyst. What happened? Before I started, I was interviewed by the MD of the broking house, an immaculate survivor, a veteran, a well-connected broker called Gorman. I don't know exactly what they told him about me, but even though I needed the job, I had a wife and child to support, I didn't want him thinking I had any experience as an analyst. I made sure he knew that, but he didn't seem to care. The salary I would be starting on was low, but it would rise if I could prove myself. Gorman was a no-nonsense sort of guy who nevertheless treated me with a certain deference. I thought he might have been told about my PhD. What makes you think that? I don't really know. Something he said, maybe. But perhaps he was like that with everyone. You know the type. So high up the food chain that he can afford to be courteous even to someone at my level. Look at your reasoning, Dennis. Someone above you is respectful towards you, and you discount it and attribute it to your relative unimportance. Perhaps he was a decent man who had been told good things about you. He's not a decent man. He was doing someone a favour. You'll hear. He's not a decent man. I would appreciate it if, in your sessions with me, you managed to refrain from giving people the benefit of the doubt. Even you? You can't help yourself, can you? Please go on. I had a week off between leaving and starting with Gorman. Patricia was by then working part-time as a receptionist at a gym. I thought I'd take my son to Mildura, see my parents. It was an unexpected bonus for them. The new job? No, the week with their grandson. I told them about the job, but one of my jobs was like another to them. Once I got into university, my parents stopped trying to understand what it was I was doing. I think my father was actually a little disappointed that I didn't make something someone could hold, something people needed. But he always acted proud at my graduations. I think as long as I had a job and a family, they were satisfied. As long as he had a grandson, he could take out fishing. Do you fish? A little, not as much as my father, living on the Murray. He was delighted to have the unexpected opportunity to take his son and his grandson out fishing. It was really quite sweet to see, but he wasn't very good at hiding his disappointment when it rained. It rained in Mildura? Yeah, we got rained out. What are the chances of that? We came home a day early. Patricia wasn't home and the house was in a mess. There were a number of message pads around the telephone with times and dates scribbled on them. I took my bag into the bedroom, which was also a complete mess. Like a bomb had hit it. The bedclothes were on the floor. There was a bottle of cognac out and a glass on each of the bedside tables. I felt like a weight had been dropped on my chest because I knew what it meant. A short time later, I heard Patricia pull up outside. She would have seen my car. I was putting the cognac away when she came in. The first thing she said was, "You're a day early." That was a Friday. I was starting the new job on Monday. Patricia had been seeing one of the clients from the gym. It didn't matter what his name was or how long she'd been seeing him. I had to understand that. What mattered, she said, was that she had never been happier. I should be happy for her. I asked what she wanted to do, and she said that my discovering the relationship was a good thing. It had forced her hand. I remember she was making the bed when she said, "I'm going," and she did. She packed a couple of cases and left. She walked out on my son and me. How old was your son? Almost 8. How did you feel? How do you think I felt? I felt as though all the air had been forced out of my chest. Did you love her? I thought I did. So now you're not so sure? No, I'm quite sure it was love. I just don't know who it was for. It was probably just a kind of love with the idea of being in love. I needed to be in love. Why do you say that? Because even then I didn't really know her. I didn't know what made her tick. She was pregnant when we bought the house. It was a new neighbourhood. I thought that, under the circumstances, she should find a doctor she liked, a GP. To be our family doctor, someone she could trust. She chose someone. I even saw him a couple of times. What was wrong with you? Nothing really. Nothing then. I was working hard, and though I was always tired at night, I had a lot of trouble sleeping. He gave me some pills and told me I was working too hard. She was going down on him. What? She was having an affair or a fling with him, with the GP. She told me about this much later, said it wasn't serious, that it didn't last long. She said they didn't even have proper sex. They used to meet in the middle of the day. She described how she did it for him. I had made her pregnant. I had married her, but I had no idea who she was. So she left the weekend before you started the new job? Yes. I had to keep it all together, learn the job, got my son ready for school in the mornings, take him there and arrange to have him brought home by a neighbour with a boy at the same school. I was numb. I just wanted my boy to be okay, and he wasn't. He cried a lot, asked where she was. Time went slowly for him, but for me the weeks just tumbled over each other, trying to get away from me as fast as they could. I tiptoed around at work, unknowing and unfeeling. I was exhausted at the end of each day. Impersonating someone with self-esteem can be very enervating. About 6 weeks later, my wife came around to the house in tears. The man she had left us for was married. His wife had only been overseas on holiday. Patricia hadn't known he was married. You took her back? I thought I loved her. She said it had been a mistake and that I had contributed to it by neglecting her, working too many hours. Look, of course it sounds like bullshit now, but I didn't know then all that I know now. My son was crying every night. I had just started this job, an unfamiliar job. She was still his mother. I'm not criticizing you. I'm just trying to learn about you. Interestingly, a few weeks after that, I read in the paper that one of the directors of the merchant bank I'd left, the one who'd helped me, had resigned. It was rumoured he'd been pushed. Do you know why? No, I don't. None of the other members of the board were prepared to comment. They stick together, those guys. maybe even more than you guys do. What makes you think Czech psychiatrists stick together? Chapter 5. Essentially, for the last God knows how many years it's been now, my job has been to go out and see people from various companies, officers of corporations, managing directors, people whose task it was to tell market analysts like me what their companies wanted the market to think about their operations or about their share price. I would see people, talk on the phone, read the press, the industry reports, financial reports, formulate questions, and try to get them answered. I would attempt to sift out the deliberate ambiguities and unequivocal lies, and then I'd make recommendations to the dealers. It might be to buy, to sell, or simply to hold. There's no commission for the dealers when a client holds. Dealers need turnover. People should remember that. It's a matter of simple logic that there exists an ongoing, necessary conflict of interest between the dealer and the client. And between the dealer and the analyst, I suppose? Oh, I'll get to that, don't worry. Dealers are the interface between the reality of the market and the man in the street who sees it as an almost magical machine for the rapid creation of life-changing wealth. The man in the street hears the news or reads the paper, the stock reports. They're pumping into his consciousness 24 hours a day, every day. He hears names, mostly unfamiliar names, attached to companies that trade in things he often either doesn't know or understand. And those names are in turn attached to dollar values, which the man hears are going up, way up. He's heard of other men who got on to all of this before he did, and they don't worry anymore. They breathe easier. They've paid off their houses. They've bought new houses and new cars. These other guys have left our man for dead. Breathless, the man in the street who usually doesn't know that there's other men, not just now, he never knew them, and he never will, picks up the receiver of his phone and he dials a broking house. And no matter the words he chooses, no matter how he starts the conversation, no matter how polite he is, what he's trying to say, what he is screaming is, "Let me in!" And who does he get? Who is on the other side of the line when the man in the street wants out of the street and into some barely imagined stratosphere? He thinks he's getting an economist, a financial expert of some description, a calm and considered man, top of his class with quick reflexes, who speaks the impenetrable language of the market, a man who can simultaneously read it, translate it, and, most importantly, who can predict where it's going. Is this what the man in the street gets when he calls a broking house? No, it isn't. Not at all. What he gets is a man like Joe Geraghty. Have I mentioned Joe Geraghty to you before? You mentioned him. Joe Geraghty is the reason I'm seeing you. Forget gambling. Forget my wife. Tell me about him. He's a dealer I worked with on the managed care deal, and I was a fool ever to have anything to do with him. Where do I start? He's a big man, tough, works out, prone to arrogance, vain, vacuous, with a volcanic stupidity. A volcanic stupidity, people of Earth. Yes, I've met those types too. What do you mean, a volcanic stupidity? It's generally dormant, but it erupts under pressure. He is the kind of man who wants you to think that he's got people on 6 other lines waiting when you're talking to him on the phone. He wants you to think he's surrounded by screens, receiving information from all over the country, from all over the world, and transmitting it to clients, tapping frantically but purposefully on his keyboard like a percussionist, or else that he's having seamless conversations through a headset with an attached microphone like an air traffic controller, calling the money into land, guiding it, making money for you, even as he inhales. He wears ostentatiously expensive suits and too much aftershave. He drives some impractical, smart-ass foreign car and talks about it. He's proud of his car. He doesn't understand the inanity of having pride in a car. He thinks women like him, and because he is so utterly convinced of this, some of them always do. What women? Oh, I don't know. The women in the office? I've heard his wife is beautiful in a classy way. By rights, she should be a plastic bimbo. I've never met her, so I can't say. But you see, everybody likes him, and he knows they do, and that only makes it worse. Do you think you're a little jealous of him? Jealous? He's a buffoon. I don't want to be like him. Look, Alex, he is one of those people who makes huge sums of money off other people's backs. Off your back? Aren't you ashamed to charge for such facile analysis? Dennis, you stop me if I'm characterizing the situation incorrectly. Analysts who do the research are on a fixed salary, while the dealers who sell the results of this research to investors are on a salary plus a commission. Yes. But you knew this was the way it worked when you started. Dealers make more money than analysts. Despite that, you didn't ever want to be a dealer? No, I didn't. So why do you hate them? I don't hate them. I hate him. I know you'll say hate is a stupid word. Do you think it's a stupid word? Or do you think I'm going to tell you it's a stupid word? I think questions like that are stupid. I don't know how any remotely intelligent person can think questions like that can be beneficial to somebody's mental health, and I fucking hate it when you ask them. You charge for this. It's unbelievable. Tell me about you and Joe Geraghty. What happened? Joe Geraghty sold things, chiefly himself. He was a dealer. His job was to sell whatever we recommended, and, I have to admit, he was good at it. His figures were good, sometimes, very good. He'd worked his way up as, I suppose I had, but our methods were different. Our modus operandi. What's the plural of that? You're the Latin scholar. I don't know. You were saying you went about things in different ways. Most people are optimists when it comes to investing. Joe Garrity made a name for himself by playing on that. He talked things up infectiously and got people to buy more and more often. He was better at it than many of his competitors, both inside and outside the firm. You see, people, investors in the market, spend 90% of whatever mental effort they expend on their portfolio looking at the buy side of the story. It goes against the grain, for most people anyway, to put much thought into the selling side. What to sell, when to sell, for how much. It's not as appealing. And it's easier for the dealer to bring someone along for a buy than it is to bring them along for a sell. For a start, the investor has to already own the stock, and on top of that, the dealer is more reluctant to push him to sell than to buy, because it will feel as though the dealer's telling him, "You've made a mistake. You've done something wrong." Nobody likes saying that to the hand that feeds you, especially when the truth is that you don't know your ass from your head and are just mouthing the advice of someone you don't fully trust anyway, knowing, feeling somewhere between your heart and your hypothalamus that the whole endeavour is always and everywhere largely speculative. It's gambling. And if the dealer does stick his neck out and convince the investor to sell the stock, there's always the chance that the investor will want a second opinion. Is that bad? Sure. Even if a second dealer confirms the first dealer's recommendation, the investor will most likely sell then and there through the second dealer. The first dealer loses the commission and is forgotten by the investor, only to be remembered if he made the wrong call. What does all this have to do with you and Joe Garrity? Because we were opposites, we made a good team. It got to be that we acted de facto as a kind of team. He fell into the habit of listening to me even when I recommended holding or selling. Because of me, he would frequently recommend holding, selling, or not buying. If it worked in his client's favour, it made him look particularly good, wise, and knowledgeable. As a result, when he told them to buy something, they really listened. He could get people to pour buckets of money into something simply because he refused to get excited about every stock. You said you were opposites. In what way? In practically every way. He was forever talking, trying to promote himself by letting people know how much he knew or thought he knew. I tried to survive by saying as little as possible, because you can get it right for the wrong reasons too, you know. To some extent, as an analyst, especially when you start, you have to wing it. It's the worst thing you can do, but sometimes, to be frank, you just have to. You're under such pressure to come up with ideas, and it's not only when you're starting out. In the beginning, you're out of breath every day, just trying to keep them from realizing how superficial your knowledge is of anything anyone is talking about. How many stocks do you think anyone can properly cover Anyway, I don't know. Guess. I've no idea. Oh, well, what do you think? Dennis, it's not my area. I'd be guessing. I'm asking you to guess. I don't know. 50? 100? 100? Are you out of your mind? I'm talking about knowing a company inside out. You have to work hard for a long time to know 10, 12 at most. I've seen kids come in raw, straight out of business school. The print on their NBA is still wet. They put everything into certain boxes, do a Porter framework on everything, and walk around their workstations like they're some kind of guru. Does it matter that I don't know who Porter is? Not in the least. He's a professor of business administration at Harvard Business School, and that's just at the beginning. Sooner or later, if you're still there, you realize that you have to get rated, because being unrated means your position is tenuous and your salary is pathetic. You need to be making a lot of money. So you keep an eye on what your competitors are doing. Read their research if you possibly can. Watch the surveys. You lie awake at night and worry about other analysts getting to your contacts when you're on holiday or when you're at home with the flu. I'm just going to close my blinds, people of air. It's dark outside now. But you said it takes lots of time and effort to know even 10 or 12 stocks. Yes, and I also said you can get it right for the wrong reasons. Someone, without knowing anything, could get lucky all while you weren't there. You'd be forgotten. When you're unrated, you go to meetings and look up to the rated analysts above you. You don't know how they do it. The MD calls them by their names, but he doesn't know yours. You realize you have to make contacts and you have to get rated. Then when you are rated, you work on trying to improve your rating or else on just maintaining your current ranking. You lose sleep. You get used to not sleeping. When you go to meetings as a rated analyst, everyone is looking to you for answers, for recommendations. The MD knows your name now, and the unrated nameless guys watch and make small talk with you before the meeting starts. They're trying to listen. They're trying to catch crumbs falling from your plate. They want your ranking. You see a thick band tautening around their temples, pulling at their eyes, making them smile in that way that reminds both you and them that we cannot, none of us, ever relax. This must take its toll on your relationships, on your personal lives. If you're referring to my marriage, sure, I was leaving early and coming home late, but Patricia, she was never going to be faithful, no matter what I did for a living. It was not the sex. Well, not only. She needs what she misperceives as the reassurance, the reinvigoration of her self-esteem that comes with each new conquest. She needs it like so many men do. I think that at some level she knows that the lust of a stranger won't ever cure her of her fear of rejection, that no number of men will ever erase the feeling of being unloved by her parents, particularly her mother. but she forgets it just long enough to take the bait every time. You sound as if you've forgiven her. You think so? I'm nowhere near finished. And what about Joe Garrity? Oh, that's clever, Alex. Touché. What the hell are you trying to suggest? I wasn't suggesting anything. I'm just asking questions. Look, what they have in common, all they have in common is betrayal. Their betrayal of me. I've heard it said betrayal and trust come from the same plate. It's just a question of which gets there first. What do you think? Oh, what sort of shit is that? Well, in order for someone to be betrayed, he must first trust, or at least rely, on the betrayer. Doctor, if you'll give me the antidepressants, I'll leave now and you can masturbate for the rest of my session without me in the room. Dennis, what happened with you and Joe Garrity? We needed each other, or thought we did. I told you he'd sometimes rely on what was often really just a recommendation hewn from the depths of my uncertainty. Based on what I'd tell him, he'd frequently get his clients to do things which were, at least in the short term, not in his best interests. For example, he'd get them to hold, and there's no commission in that. When it eventually paid off, his clients thought he was God, and he started to think of me not just as a rated analyst, but as his lucky analyst. What made him take your advice even when it wasn't in his short-term interest too? Or was it that he could see that it would pay off in the long run? I don't know. What do you think? I really don't know. I think maybe he just trusted me. You said before that you needed each other. Our skills complemented each other, or we thought they did. And then, for one brief, shining moment, our contacts complemented each other as well. Our contacts needed each other. It was a perfect match. Everyone was going to come out of it with a lot of money. By the way, everything I say in here is confidential, right? Of course. Not that any of it isn't already known by anyone who is interested, I suppose. Joe Garrity was the dealer of choice to one of the wealthiest men in the country, while I, after years of talking and listening to a certain entrepreneur, was uniquely placed to assist that entrepreneur. My value to him was contingent on my relationship with Joe Garrity. The way it was to work, I may as well mention their names, you'd work it out anyway. Dennis, you'd be shocked to know how little I know about the world of the stock market, but you can say anything you like in here. I'm not permitted to repeat it, even if I understand it. Oh, you'll understand it too well for my liking. It was widely known by anyone who cared that the government wanted to introduce legislation to make US-style managed care agreements legally enforceable. I know you know what that means. Better than most. Now, at that time, as you'd also know, the declared intention of the opposition, which was ideologically opposed to this, was to block the legislation in the Senate. My contact, the entrepreneur I was close to, was Sid Graham. Don't look surprised. I know you're not. Sid is, among other things, the chairman and majority shareholder of the health insurance company Health National. He also even then owned a number of private hospitals. Sid has been told in confidence by somebody in the opposition that, despite declared party policy, there was in fact majority support for the government's mooted managed care bill in the opposition parliamentary party room. Knowing that private hospitals, which weren't doing too well, would become extremely profitable with managed care, Sid wanted Health National to buy up as many private hospitals as possible. To fund the purchase, he planned a massive share issue by Health National. Sid's problem was that he couldn't publicise either Health National's intention to purchase the hospitals. Why not? Because it would have immediately raised the price of the hospitals. Yes, of course. Nor did he want to publicly signal the impending policy repudiation by the opposition parliamentary caucus and alert the large majority in the party's extra parliamentary membership hostile to managed care in time for them to preempt the about face. What he really needed was for it to be known that someone really big, someone renowned for their commercial sagacity and huge wealth, had invested heavily in the share issue. That's where Joe came in. You can guess who his contact was. He was the dealer of choice for Donald Shear. If he could get Shear to take up a sizable part of the offer, the price would skyrocket and every man and his dog would want in. I suppose so. It's obvious I don't play the market. Plenty of psychiatrists do, Alex. I've known a few. Yes, yet you chose to come to me. It was her idea. She spoke very highly of you. You say that as though you have considerable regard for her opinion, anyway. Don't speculate about me and her. I don't know. I suppose it's the managed care thing, the coincidence of it. As I've said, what are the chances of that? But you've also said this is not about gambling. That's not why you're here. You're determined, aren't you, Alex? Determined to have me, a sexually frustrated Catholic with a gambling problem, in need of confession. What went wrong with the deal? The opposition did let the legislation through. We have managed care now. Couldn't you get Shear to invest? It wasn't up to me to get Shear to invest. That was Joe's job, and he failed you? Is that the betrayal? This is testing you, isn't it, Alex? You're having trouble remaining objective, aren't you? No, I don't think so. Why do you say that? Because this whole topic seems to make you jumpy. You're quick to interrupt. It's as though you want me to hurry up, as though you want this topic over and done with. I'm sorry if I'm giving you that impression. You should feel free to talk about whatever you like. Go ahead. And so I will cease and desist here. We're up to chapter 6 of part 4. And I'm going to go and relax and watch some television and enjoy what's left of my evening. So I bid you adieu. Have a wonderful afternoon, evening, morning, night, wherever you are in the space-time continuum, and I'm enjoying the lovely cool of this delicious storm. We didn't get any tornadoes, which I think we can probably be grateful for, but if the Bureau of Meteorology aren't a lot of bumbling idiots and fools and liars, someone might have copped shit. So if you did, I hope you didn't lose everything and that you get extra support, because tornadoes are serious business, people of Earth. I was in a mini one in Hervey Bay in 1992, staying in a motel with my then husband and babies, and my mother was on holiday with us. And I was actually standing in the window of the motel looking out at the black sky, and everything was black, but I heard the sound of what sounded like a gigantic vacuum cleaner sucking everything backwards. It sounded like this. But woo, and you could feel the pressure being sucked out away, like out to sea. And I thought instantly, I screamed out to my then husband and my then mother, quick, get the kids in the back room and hunker down. And I ran after them. I didn't stand around, fortunately, but had I stayed there and had the wind blown in my direction, I would have had a face full of smashed glass. But fortunately there was no damage in our little motel room. But when the storm or the mini tornado ended and we went outside, there was roofing from all the roofs wrapped around all the gigantic, they were like big cypress tree, not cypress trees, big kind of pine trees. It was all wrapped around, it looked like tinsel. It was quite frightening. But it only sort of went in a small narrow area right through past our motel, and only affected about 200 metres either side, to the side of us. Not mowed everything down there, and we were very fortunate that we weren't hurt and there was no damage to, you know, the building we were staying in or our car. But I never forgot that. It was the sound it made that was the most terrifying thing of all. Hearing all the air being hoovered up. So, you know, I do take these things semi-seriously, but honestly, people of Earth, the complete fumbling that they've been doing in the last 5 years is quite astonishing. Almost makes me think if it's deliberate, actually. You know, they can't possibly come out of university being that unable to accurately predict things and bumbling along. It's just mind-blowingly inane. But, or it's deliberate fear-mongering. Yes. But I'm going to leave you now, and blessed be, and stay safe wherever you are, and strive to be happy even though we're surrounded by inane, bumbling, zombie idiots most of the time. Some of us are still clean and clear and psych meds free and got our minds back and quite capable of discerning what's going on. So there you go. Take good care. Bye for now, people of Earth.